A very versatile Ashley Lawrence will be linking up with Canadian teammates Khadijah Buchanan and Jessie Fleming next season, this time at club level at Chelsea. So let's talk about it. 27-year-old Toronto native Ashley Lawrence leaves PSG as a free agent after spending over 6 years with the French club, playing semi-professional soccer in Canada and then playing collegiate soccer in the US with West Virginia. PSG was the first professional contract that Lawrence signed back in 2017. She initially started off as a midfielder, but now has become one of the most underrated and one of the best fullbacks in the modern game. She's accumulated over 150 appearances for PSG across competitions. She's also already hit that 100 cap landmark for Canada and has really become to be considered one of the most influential leaders on the team as of the last few years. She's already gone to 2 World Cups. She's already been a heavily important role in 2 Olympics, most importantly and most notably the gold medal that Canada just recently won. She's only 27 and you can almost argue she hasn't even hit her peak yet. So how does she play? What does she play? What's her profile look like? What are her expectations of signing with Chelsea and how is that going to look like? Primarily over the last few years, playing as a fullback, right back for PSG and more of a left back for Canada, depending on the positions and the injuries that the Canadian national team is dealing with, which is often a very long list of injuries. Her ability to play on both of these wings really comes down to how good she is with both her feet. You can, in other words, describe her as really two-footed. 1, it's quite rare to see a player that is very good with both their feet, but 2, yes, they can be good with both their feet, but you need to know how to use both of them in the right time, in the right moment, and the right positioning in the field. In fact, even though she's a player that you will definitely see on the wings of or the sides of the field, you cannot be surprised if you see her slip into the midfield. In fact, we saw that happen often in the Olympics, depending on how Beth Priestman was changing or up the setup. Because she rose into the game and really entered that professional game as a midfielder, Lawrence almost has a really good understanding of how to interact and connect with midfielders, which is actually a very underrated quality that, again, a word that you're going to hear quite often today is underrated, because Ashley Lawrence is so underrated on so many of her qualities. What I mean by connecting with midfielders is that she's very good in making sure that she's able to progress the ball, either herself or set up her teammates in a very progressive position. Understood and seen as one of the modern day fullbacks, so a fullback that is very involved in the attack and sets up her wingers and the attacking midfielders as well as her strikers in some options, either in crossing or whatever it might be that she's involved in the attacking setup. But as a fullback, you still need to maintain these one-on-one qualities, be able to track back and really have a lot of pace to track wingers that you're going up against. That, in a nutshell, is the modern day fullback. And that, in a nutshell, is also Ashley Lawrence. She's not a fullback that will necessarily be right in front of the goal, or she's not necessarily a fullback that will be taking shots at goal, but she's a fullback that has one of the cleanest and most accurate crosses into the box, often kind of like in this awkward chip style. This awkward chip style is hard to read by other fullbacks. So when she is actually on the wing and when she is able to connect with the cross, a lot of fullbacks aren't able to read how that chippy, awkward cross really looks like. And that is one of her best qualities when she's playing as a right back. If you are going to compare her with the majority of other high-profile right backs in the WSL, such as Noelle Moritz or Anna Battier even, she might fall a little bit behind in terms of, again, how many shots she's taking straight at goal. But the other stats that she's able to overtake these other fullbacks with, and something that has really equipped her and she's kind of mastered her really over the years, is her passes into that final third, her progressive carries, her progressive balls into that final third. If you look at her pass completion, it's going to be something in the 90th percentile, but that is also kind of meaningless because a lot of these passes can be going backwards. A lot of these passes can just be quite meaningless. But when you dig deeper into these passes, you see that a lot of them are long attempted passes into the box. 86% of those come down as expected assists, which is just a ridiculous number for an expected assist. It just shows the efficiency and ability to see where the game could be going in that final third. And 95% of those passes are progressive passes. And so it's almost like because she doesn't really have to worry about taking these shots or putting herself in a position where she's really deep into the box, she can focus on setting up her players and she can focus on even allowing that winger that she's playing behind to get involved a little bit more into the box and set them up as well. This is something that we have seen continuously and consistently with the Canadian national team. If it's either Becky or Leon or whoever it is that she's playing right behind, you will see a lot of these wingers be in the box. And again, and that is something that she's just so good in, allowing them to find their own space, but also being able to spot them in the box. And even though this is a high risk, high reward type of play, because you still want your winger to be a little bit closer to you and in support for you, it is a high risk, high reward. And because of how efficient she is with her crosses and passes and overall progressive play, it kind of always pays out. Her dribbling stats also fall down in both her feet, so she's able to comfortably dribble it either, again, if she's put on the left back or the right back spot. But it comes down to her nitty gritty, dirty work defensive style. She is so good with tracking back, which is, again, something that she has had to work on and has had to improve in her early days from switching from a midfielder to a fullback and even to the modern fullback. So she's kind of had to go through a fair amount of transitional stages. She struggled with defending counterattacks, but what you have seen over the last 4 or 5 years is how good she's reacted to that, and now how well she reads a counterattack. And positionally, she's gone so much better than she used to be. And in some ways, I have to credit Bev Priestman in the Canadian setup. I mean, a lot of fans say that Canada's defensive style is quite boring because they just love to defend, but what you get to see in the end products is you've got players like Ashley Lawrence who are so good at defending and are so stubborn when it comes to having those one-on-one defenders or just being stuck in an area where you just completely lock out the winger you're playing up against. So defensively, she's quite stable, and now she has been able to contribute that midfielder role and that midfielder experience, gain as well from the players around her. She's played around some very, very great players in the game, both at PSG and in the Canadian setup, to allow herself to grow and develop in those progressive plays and those attacking plays. Looking at her defensive numbers, they've been quite consistent, but she has had a dip this last season with PSG. She has been sidelined for honestly almost half of the season at this rate with injuries, and so she's had to come on a few times, get injured, and then be out for a little bit and then come back on. So she hasn't been able to get that consistency of game time, which has probably kind of hindered her numbers when it comes to defensive abilities. She has missed out on a fair amount of international camps, so this year she has struggled a little bit with injuries and kind of just monitored her minutes, obviously in consideration that there's a World Cup coming up. So you look at her defensive numbers, they don't look too neat this season exactly. She's quite stubborn, and again, I'm going to reference how two-footed she is, but she is very good in monitoring her body, so she's able to move inside, outside, put a leg in, put a leg out. She can do it with both feet. She's very well-rounded with both her feet, and that again translates into her defensive work. And admittedly, Buchanan has not had the best season. Error prone more than usual, losing her marker more than usual, sloppy passes more than usual. So this is by no means saying that, Buchanan was absolutely outstanding and Lawrence is going to slot in and also be absolutely outstanding. Obviously, you can never predict for how a player adapts or that period of like slotting into a completely new system, into a completely new league. It takes a bit of time, and I think probably with Buchanan it took a little bit more time than anticipated, which not to speculate that this will be the case with Lawrence, but you can almost see like very similar patterns of both of them spending a very significant amount of time in top French teams, and Buchanan in a few games was played out of position in terms of which side she wanted or which side she prefers to play in the back, which kind of drives me into the next topic of where do I think Lawrence is going to play, or where should Lawrence really slot in with this Chelsea system. Looking at the areas they've struggled with, looking at the players that they currently have, looking at the players that they're currently leaving out or players that are leaving, there's a big question mark around that left back position. And can Lawrence play as a left back? Absolutely. That really has been where she's played for the majority of the games for Canada. Is that her best position, or is that the optimal position for her? No. It is the right back position. But on that right back position, you've had Yves Perisset, who I think has had a very bright season with Chelsea, a very good season. Chelsea just signed a defensive midfielder from Frankfurt, German young star. There's been conversations with Emma Hayes saying that she wants to play her at left back, center back, defensive midfielder. Still, her position is also a little bit unclear. But when we come back to Lawrence now, my expectation would be that she slots into that left back position, at least for the first season there, play quite consistently behind Guro Reiten, and only will rotation or just Emma Hayes experiments will force her to play a right back, which again kind of bothers me because I feel like Lawrence's best crosses and Lawrence's best work come from that right flank. Playing at left back will slightly diminish some of her qualities, and I wonder even if she's going to be played a little bit higher, more of like a left wing back almost. Will we see her play on a winger position? In fact, even rotating with Lauren James, or even the possibility of Guro Reiten. Again, these are all possibilities, and I think what I like about this is she is so versatile. She will allow a lot of rotation in those wing positions that I think Chelsea will need to closely look at now because Harder is leaving. Guro has had a ridiculous amount of minutes this season, and not to say I think she's been their best player this season, but her rack of minutes, you'd want to rest her a game or two. You'd want to maybe slightly kind of contain her minutes because you don't want to risk injury to a player who's that important. So adding Ashley into that roster and knowing how versatile she is on both flanks and with both her feet will allow flexibility. But given the amount of time and minutes she has spent at left back with Canada and sometimes here and there with PSG, depending on their injury list, her game isn't massively diminished. She's still able to have these progressive carries, and she still has these, like, again, massively weirdly awkward chips with her left foot into the box. I entertain the idea of playing behind Guro, and even if Jessie Fleming, let's say they're playing at 210s or almost like an 8, so playing a little bit deeper or lower. They know each other quite well. They've been playing together, I think, since Jessie's been like 16 or 17. So they know each other pretty well, which again, I think are good chemistry links to have going into a team. Chelsea being able to secure the likes of Lawrence in talks with Macario and have already done a few signings, it tells you just how good they are with recruitment. And I think we can talk about, Emma Hayes being a manager, X, Y, and Z, being able to win trophies, but she's such a good recruiter. She's recruited Sam Kerr, Harder, obviously, Fleming, giving her first professional contract. That's not a gamble a Chelsea team does. I mean, I can't think of many players that Chelsea were willing to give a first professional contract, but she's able to recruit. She's able to convince top high-level profile players to join her squad over other European threats. She's got really important leadership qualities, has had the armband a few times for PSG, has even had the armband a few times here and there with Canada. Hopefully we see her more so at right back. My gut feeling tells me at left back, at least for the first season. This is a 3-year contract reportedly. I'm super excited to see her combine with the likes of Jessie Fleming. I'm super excited to see her have these awkward chips and crosses into Sam Kerr to find a header. I mean, I think tactically as a full team, just, we talk about recruitment and how well you need to tailor the players you add into your squad. Putting her in a squad like this with the players that are around her, with the likes of I'm not going to name every single Chelsea player, but it will guarantee her reaching her full potential, or so I hope, as well as allowing her players to flourish, because she is a player that does allow a lot of that spotlight not on her but on the other players, which is again why she's just so underrated, because she could have this absolutely ludicrous assist and not even celebrate and just give it a good old clap and move on. She will most certainly have a very important role to play at the World Cup, obviously with Janine Becky now being out, so she can play on those flanks. Hopefully she stays safe and no injuries, and she does not come out of the World Cup with an injury where Chelsea can't even really start with her. It's going to be a very exciting signing. I'm excited to see how she combines with the rest of the players. It's exciting to see more Canadian players get better recognition. Hopefully her joining the WSL will give her that spotlight, and hopefully she will not be one of the most underrated fullbacks in the current game. Let me know your opinions on this. Let me know what you think of Ashley Lawrence, what you've watched from her, what you think of her decision to choose Chelsea over other big clubs, wink wink, Bayern Munich, who still need a fullback, and that will be interesting to see who they secure. If you're a Canadian and you're watching this, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about this? Because seeing Canadians move around in Europe is super fun. You gotta love it, man. As always, to stay updated and to continue enjoying the beautiful game, make sure you subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Twitter, and I will see you later.